That's basically the understanding and the reasoning, more or less, as to exactly why we're having this sort of situation.
Well, Imtiaz, certainly this is a case of bad planning, bad management, bad foresight as well on the part of the authorities and the powers that be.
Inayat, we shouldn't compound things to say it's flooding. What we need to remember is as a city, and this is something we've been asking before we even got into council per se, and we've always asked that if the city is saying that they needed before the floods 128 billion rand to repair water infrastructure within the city, and 52% of water was wasted. Now, when you unpack that and you really look at it, you ask yourself a question, and it leaves us wanting, if you know what I mean. That where was research and development for the past 20, 28 odd years? Why was this not looked at and said, we've got asbestos pipes, we've got these sorts of things, and these are the types of things that are happening within the city? And why wasn't there a renewal policy or renewal plan on an annual basis to say that water infrastructure here is aged? We need to start replacing these pipes. Let's put it in as part of our budget. Let's do these sorts of things. And those things never happened. The reason for that is that when we're looking at the committees, and I currently sit on the Human Settlements and Infrastructure Committee, when we look at the committees and the capacity of the people and the understanding of what we need, we don't have that amongst politicians. And that's a cause for concern. The officials within the city also need to be giving us reports to say that these are the things that need to be replaced. And if we don't do it timeously, these are the implications of those non-active projects, if you know what I mean. So we need to start moving in that trajectory. And that's something that we very, very, as the Active Citizens Coalition, we're very, very adamant about, to say that we need to look at how do we bring a city into a space of delivering a service without interruptions continuously. It needs to be sustainable. And that's the issue we have as a city. So we tend to spend emergency funds and overtime funds and all of these things, which to me is irregular expenditure, based on the fact that we didn't plan properly.
Well, isn't this, the problem that we are faced with right across the entire country, just because, Durban is just one. And, now you mentioned that how the problem obviously has been compounded as well. Later on, we are going to be talking about Nelson Mandela Bay at day zero as well. And, this seems to be a problem that just occurs over and over again without any solutions in sight.
The thing is, when politics and actual service delivery try to mix with each other, we tend to get things not going. And that's a major problem. I mean, Tongaat, for example, right? Units were supposed to have put up the road and they promised to have it done in a week. We're assuming that it's probably done because it's a private entity. They said they're going to do A, they probably tend to do A. The problem is that government does not run as though it's a business. Government runs politically whilst trying to make management and officials do the work. And that problem becomes protocol. And protocols observed dictate that certain things happen in a certain way, and the time frames by which it happens gets extended. I mean, currently right now, there was a contractor appointed to re-erect the water treatment plant out in Tonga. Now, based on the fact that there was a cheaper quotation, there is now a problem wherein they put in an objection. That objection delays service delivery in itself. Now, if the processes were run properly and everyone was consulted to avoid the objection coming to the fore, which would now take at least 2 months to resolve because there's threats of court and all of those things that happen, the people of Tonga now don't get service delivery because politically there's no will to say that we should have done it in a particular way beforehand, understood, called in all the role players and say, how do we now manage this? Yes, there is someone cheaper, but it's based on X, Y, and Z. That's why we're giving it to supplier B, if you know what I'm saying. But they go out in their water tender, and then all of a sudden there's an objection, and now we're sitting in a situation where the contractor that's appointed can't start work because there's an objection, So these are the problems we face. And a lot of it comes from the political climate. A lot of it comes from the lack of understanding of what it is we really need to do. I mean, most of the time, coming from a business background, when there's something that needs to be done and you need to buy a vehicle or whatever it is in terms of tools of trade or whatever it is, you tend to go out and get it done. Now, when it comes to government, that doesn't happen. There's a million things to do before you buy a packet of sugar, and that's a problem. That's what we're facing at the moment.
Well, it is. It's a major issue, and I can concur with what you're saying, Imtiaz. Because last week we hosted a panel discussion on service delivery, just
Mhm.
in Asia alone, and the sentiments that you
Yes.
express with regards to political agendas that are playing out, national political agendas that are playing out, and
Yes.
how this actually impacts at the very basic, at the local level, as far as
Yes.
service delivery goes. So, with politicians and political parties, they've got their own ambitions, but not realizing
Yes.
how this is actually impacting on the bread and butter issues, day to day issues that you and
Mm,
I,
mm.
as communities, as citizens, are actually faced with.
Yeah. The thing about it is this, it's a very simple thing. And we've always said this, that in order for service delivery to get to the people, we need to relook at how local government is constituted. When we have national parties sitting at local government pushing a national agenda locally, we tend to find that service delivery becomes lacking. Why? Because it's about opposition politics. It's about we didn't do something right in this municipality with this party, so therefore we can't support them in moving forward in terms of something that they want to try and achieve in this municipality. And it becomes opposition politics at the end of the day. So even if a party has something good that they want to do for the city, they ultimately has an or they automatically have an opposition based on the fact not because it's something that's illegitimate or something like that, but based on the fact that we have to be opposing it because we nationally oppose this particular party. And that's problematic. That's problematic when it comes to local government. Because in local government is where you and I as citizens actually get the real service we require in terms of trade services. Your electricity, your water, your real estate, your town planning, all of those things come from local government. It doesn't come from national government. And we need to relook at how national parties deal with their local constituencies in terms of how they work with other parties. And COCTA really needs to start looking at how is it that national parties have such a hold over parties in local municipalities in terms of how they do things and whatever. Because when we sit in meetings, it's quite clear that the people sitting in those meetings don't actually have the power to make decisions. I mean, I, for one, and a few other smaller parties, we sit there as party leaders. We can caucus ourselves in that meeting and be decisive about what's the way forward, whether it's right, whether it's incorrect, or whatever. But you have parties that have to step out the room for half an hour, try and get a hold of their national leader, come back with a decision. And ultimately, most of the time, it's not based on the crux of what we're dealing with. It's based on who supports it and who doesn't support it. If someone in the opposition supports it, then automatically the party comes back and say, no, 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 we don't support it based on whatever nonsense reasons that they give. And that's what's playing out in municipalities, and that's hindering service delivery. Ultimately, I'd give it a 70% hindrance of service delivery comes from political influence, and that's what it is.
Well, just Jazakallah khairan so much for that. And as always, for your time with us here on Salam Media. And inshallah, looking forward to next week once again. But for now, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imtiaz Syed, eThekwini secure with us, which brings us straight on to 8:51 a.m. We're going to go for a break. We'll be back.
Breaking stereotypes, moving boundaries, joining hands. Salam